that as people recognize that I'm not going to be punished for my bad behavior, the bad behavior comes out more and more and more. Because
this is the key, people, is the fact that
like a boss.
All right, guys. So today we're going to be reacting to a video where it kind of explains why inconsistent women are so addictive to guys. All right. Right. And it's actually quite fascinating because it literally uses the same circuitry. You got to understand the brain is an efficiency machine. And so what it does is rather than create new pathways, it repurposes old pathways for new things, right? So it's actually quite fascinating how this also applies to attachment theory. So we're gonna watch this video. I'm gonna give you guys my take, and I promise you, if you watch the whole video, you're gonna be very fascinated. And don't forget, we're having a seminar. Hey, Missy, we're having a seminar in London, so you guys can click on the description down below to purchase your tickets. It's about nonverbal communication. And if you guys want to work with me one-on-one, we're having 20% off, 25% off discount on my coaching calls. In the meantime, while I'm here, and if you guys enjoyed this video actually about inconsistent people, right? And you want to insulate yourself from the power of inconsistency because it has an emotional grip on us. It's deeply wired. You guys can pre-order the course Emotional Mastery. It's a 6 to 7 week course where I teach you different forms of meditation, and I give you guys tasks to improve your meditation practice, and so that you guys can apply it to social situations, so that you guys can actually become more charismatic, more likable, and some people just want to be around with all the time. Not all the time, but you get what I'm saying. It's like it just makes you more magnetic, and that's a fact. There's a lot of research that talks about that. So pre-order it by clicking on the description down below. All right. So let's begin with the video, and I'm gonna give you guys my take as we watch the video. Because partial reinforcement. Listen to this. You get rewarded on a variable ratio scheduled. The more you scroll, the more likely you are to see something you like. So it's hard to stop, like gambling or video games. So that's very interesting. And notice how he explains this, and then I'm gonna apply it to inconsistent people. Watch this.
So this is actually really important to understand. Part of the reason that it's hard to get off of these content platforms is actually because there isn't a consistency of what you get, right? So like, every time, my poison of choice is Reddit. And every time I click on a Reddit post, I don't really know what I'm going to get, right? Is this going to be a Reddit post that I'm glad I clicked on? Or is it going to be a Reddit post that's a little bit of a waste of time? And so this is a psychologist that's talking about partial reinforcement or random reinforcement, which is also a big...
We tend to see this in relationships, right? And he's going to talk about that, how we tend to see this in abusive relationships. We tend to see this in people who are inconsistent, people who have a lot of mood swings, narcissists. That's why some people who have just emotional issues, a lot of the times, they get people addicted to them, and or even like the psycho girls with the good poom poom, right? They get the dudes addicted to them, and it's because of the partial reinforcement, the psychoness, and then the reward. Right? There's a deep part of our psychology that we are susceptible to that, because how he talks about in the video, this is how our brain evolved over the millions of years of evolution. And this is how animals also, it's not just human beings. A lot of animals are like that. It's not just a human type of thing, right? And so when you meet people who are inconsistent in your life, it creates that same effect. And that's why they tend to be more addictive than most healthy people a lot of the times. But let's keep watching, right?
Big part of why gambling happens. So there are lots of studies that basically show that if you can predict a reward and there's a consistency that gets you to a particular reward, you're less likely to engage in the behavior. So for example, like if I'm playing an MMO and I am looking for a piece of loot, if there's an RNG component, I'm more likely to engage in the behavior. And this is the big thing with loot boxes. So if you look at what companies do, right? So they'll institute loot boxes instead of just letting you pay for like a cosmetic item. So instead of just paying $50 for a particular cosmetic, what I have to do, what they sort of discovered is that if I spend $50 on average and I'll get the cosmetic, they can actually engage my behavior more if it's on average.
notice, engage your behavior more. This is why when I was a kid, I was addicted to Yu-Gi-Oh cards, right? And a lot of guys would tell you that they were addicted to Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and that's because it literally applied these strategies. You don't, because you could buy a Yu-Gi-Oh card like Exodia, you could buy it, right? But they knew that if they just kept the cards hidden and you didn't know what cards you're gonna get, sometimes you get a shitty deck and sometimes you get a good deck, right? It engages people's emotions a lot more. And it kind of makes sense when you really think about it. Why neglectful parents, it creates kids with a lot of anxiety. And you gotta understand that anxiety causes the kid to want to bond with the parents more. But just because they want to bond with the parents more doesn't mean they do it in a healthy way, because then that type of connection gets repurposed to partners, right? And you see, you could apply this in a healthy way by imagining yourself, say, like it's almost like saying, okay, which you pick two cards and each card has a date. One is good and one is bad, right? And the person picks, and then you're like, okay, boom. And maybe making a habit of that, of randomly picking things where sometimes it's not that good, but sometimes it's good, makes for a rewarding type of thing. And you could imagine how you could use this for the positive. But this is why meditation is so important, because it insulates you from the ups and downs. When you practice meditation, you actually learn to become more, how can I say this? Like I always say, the intensity of the high lowers, and then the intensity of the high and the lows lower, and the duration of the lows of negative emotions, it doesn't last as long. So the more I've meditated, people, the less I smoke weed. Like that's been a fact, like an undisputable fact, right? And this is also is part of the addictive brain, where they're always seeking rewards, and through consistent meditation, you can actually insulate yourself from that psychological vulnerability that we all share as humans.
And some people get the cosmetic at $20, and some people get the cosmetic at $70. So most people get it around $50. And what they sort of figured out is that if we make it a random reinforcement schedule, it's more likely to engage in the behavior. And we've seen this with rats as well. So a lot of
It's like doing Tinder. If you do Tinder, sometimes you get rewarded, sometimes you don't, right? Even online dating, sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're not, right? Sometimes you get a match, sometimes you don't. And as long as it's inconsistent and you get some reward, I think they say it's 20% of the time, I believe. I don't know. It keeps you engaged. It keeps you, as opposed to always getting the reward, right? That's why people who go to escorts, a lot of the times they don't get the same satisfaction as opposed to people who meet women in real life. Why? Because there's an uncertainty principle when you don't know if that person is gonna like you, but there's also more reward. And that's why women who are really attractive, when they get guys that always like them, they get bored. You know, like, Miss, stop. They get bored, right? It's gonna be seeing, Missy, stop. People are watching you. Come here, Missy. Right? They get bored simply because they keep getting the reward. They keep winning, you know? And so that's why it's important sometimes when you know the person always wins, you have to make them feel like they lost sometimes. You have to make them work for it, or else they'll take you for granted. But we're going to go to a quick commercial break. All right, guys, we're going to have a brief intermission so that I could tell you guys about our new bundle that we're doing, where you guys can purchase all of my courses and get it at a discount. So this bundle is pretty much the bundle where you could just buy all of my courses. You could buy Nice Guy, which is a training course on how to come across more assertive, how to come across more confident, how to not give off nice guy vibes. You guys can get access to Dark Game, which is my full dating course on how to meet women in different scenarios, how to attract women, how to make sure you don't come across as creepy, and essentially how to act like a man and not act like a doofus, to be quite honest with you. And you get all of these bonuses, which is the bonuses of Dark Game, the bonuses of Practical Mastery, which is about how to master a skill, Social Mastery, which is how to master your social life, and the Laws of Human Nature, which is a book club videos that I had dissecting Robert Greene's book. All of this is naturally at around 238 200 no naturally is at $346, but you guys can purchase this bundle and get it at what's the price again? Get it at 238 pretty much. So you guys can purchase it right now. It's a money back 30-day money back guarantee. It's a good way to, rather than just buying them individually and paying extra, you guys can just purchase everything at a discount price. Now, the only thing I don't like is the fact that I'm giving you a lot of information at the same time. That makes me kind of scared, because a lot of times people don't do the things that I teach when you get too much information. But I've gotten too many requests to do this, so I'm just satisfying you guys. Purchase it right now by clicking on the description down below where it says purchase the bundle. All right, let's continue with the video. Okay, we're back. Don't forget, hit the like button and subscribe, or I'm closing the channel.
Studies on rats that basically, like, every 4 presses of a lever, you get like a little hit of cocaine. So they'll actually use cocaine when they do rat studies. But if there's a 25% chance of success, you're more likely to press the lever if you're a rat. Because what happens is sometimes you hit the lever and you get the cocaine. You hit it again, you get the cocaine. You hit it again, you get the cocaine. It's like 100% success rate 3 times in a row. And that experience lodges in your brain and reinforces the behavior. So this is also something that I think we're sort of seeing in content aggregation platforms, is that, interestingly enough, you're not guaranteed to enjoy what you watch. And it's that kind of lack of guarantee which sometimes makes it really, really, really positive and that you really love, and sometimes it makes it really, really negative. So you're trying 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, no reward.
And that's why some people develop a love-hate relationship with their partners. And that's why inconsistent people, they're inconsistent, but a part of us wants to get revenge. A part of us wants to put them in their place, right? And it's because they have so much control over us and we can't control their behavior. And a lot of the times, those inconsistent people, deep down, we really don't like them. They're just activating a certain part of our brain that we're weak in, you know? And that's why even if you're in love with someone and everything's good, it's always good to put a little bit of that. People may not believe me, but it's simply because they'll take you for granted. Like, it's just human nature. It's like if you play a video game. If you play a video game and you always win, it's not that fun, you know? Look, people, I didn't make people. All right, I'm just explaining human nature.
And you get frustrated to the point that you may think about stopping. But if the reward schedule is too low, then you will stop. But this is just a dry spell. If you keep going, you're gonna get what you're looking for. So it's really interesting how this works. There's one other thing that I want to bring up with y'all, which is that we also see this actually as a reason why abusive relationships persist. So a lot of times people are super confused about, I don't understand like why this person doesn't leave an abusive relationship. Right? It's because like this person mistreats you. Like, I don't understand why you're in that relationship. And if you talk to the abused partner in a relationship, what do they say? Oh, but you don't know the real person. They're just like that sometimes. Sometimes they can be so sweet, they don't really mean to. Right? So people don't usually stay in abusive relationships that are consistently abusive. What they stay in are in relationships with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where depending on the day, you can get the person who you fell in love with.
And this is why I tell people, focus more on the negative than the positive. Focus more on negative behavior than the positive behavior, because the negative behavior say more than the positive. You know, and unfortunately, when we're in love with someone and they're acting this way, we tend to focus on the positive a lot more. And we tend to put ourselves in a loop of abuse where we become perpetually addicted to people who act negative towards us, who are inconsistent, and we begin to think that's real love, you know? And unfortunately, that's really far from the truth.
With, or someone who's incredibly toxic. So we can even see this partial reinforcement. And if you yourself have been stuck in an abusive relationship, or if you stayed in an abusive relationship for a long time, ask yourself, why did you stay? It's probably because the person that you were with wasn't like that all the time, right? Sometimes they were sweet. Sometimes they were caring. Sometimes they were compassionate and supportive. And so what you're doing is you're hoping that over time, they'll grow more into that person, right? You're hoping that like they'll be less toxic over time and like more awesome over time. Whereas the truth is that unfortunately in abusive relationships, what we tend to see is the opposite. That as people recognize that I'm not going to be punished for my bad behavior, the bad behavior comes out more and more and more. Because
this is the key, people, is the fact that you are rewarding their inconsistency with your attention. Is the fact that you're not punishing their bad behavior with your absence. All because you are afraid and because you feel like you can't handle the pain of not being with them. It's a complete addiction. And through constant meditation and through having a support system, you could realize that you could, right? But that's pretty much it. This behavior will keep happening to you. This person will keep acting inconsistent with you if you keep rewarding their behavior but not punishing their behavior. Like an absence of punishment is pretty much a reward. People are not stupid. They could tell that you're letting them be selfish and you're letting them get away with it, and they see you and they think it's pathetic that you let them do that. Like seriously, some people just look at you and say, yo, this person's pathetic. Like I like you, but I wish you weren't so pathetic sometimes.
Early on, and this is sort of from the perspective of an abuser, which may be in our audience as well, you may have noticed this, even if you don't think of yourself as an abuser, that as you sort of let your temper out, as you kind of like let go a little bit and become a little bit toxic, if your partner doesn't set limits on that, what you may find yourself doing is giving into that more, right? You give into it more, and then you find yourself turning into a person that you don't even want to be.
That's what happens when you have complete power. That's why power corrupts, right? And that's why you should be careful who you give your power to, because you could corrupt them. And also, you can learn to become helpless. You can learn to completely depend on someone and to have somebody completely dominate you because you're used to it. And it's a regression to childhood where we let somebody who of higher authority control us. And there is a sense of comfort behind that. But it's toxic. It completely corrodes you on the inside.
So it's interesting because this random reinforcement schedule is something that's like a fundamental part of how our brain reinforces behavior. So it's the kind of thing where it's just the way we're wired. So we'll see things like gambling explicitly take advantage of this. I think these content aggregation platforms or social media or things like that, I don't know that they're quite as predatory as gambling is, but it definitely sort of is a factor there. We even see it in video games. So there's an interesting study that was done many, many years ago, which sort of discovered that the reason that video games are addictive is not because of the reward, it's because of the denial of the reward. So why are From Software games so damn satisfying to play? Because they're so friggin' hard. So when you finally beat Melania, Blade of Mikola, why does it feel so good? It's because it was so hard. And if you think about it, fighting against that boss is a random reinforcement schedule. Because sometimes you do pretty well. Sometimes Waterfowl Dance doesn't come out very often. Or sometimes because of the RNG, you manage to roll out of the way and you kind of handle it okay. And you're kind of fishing for that RNG, that confluence of events where they don't use the moves that you don't really know how to dodge. And as long as you can get them to use the moves that you do know how to dodge, eventually you'll win. So we see it in relationships, we see it in abusive relationships, we see it in video games, we see it on social media. So be aware of this principle. Be aware that it's part of the way that your brain works. And the more awareness you have over it, the better control you'll have of it.
And all you gotta do is just be aware of those patterns. Because when you're aware of it, there's a lot of emotions that come up that you're unconsciously aware of. And the unconscious emotions are the ones that control you the most because they sneak in through the back door. It's like people who don't understand how addiction works. Those who don't understand how addiction works get addicted more because they think it'll never happen to them. And so it's kind of you. Now that you know this, you want to be aware of it. You want to observe it. You want to learn it. And in my case, teach it. Not teaching it to be evil and shit, but as a defensive purpose. But also to learn how to sprinkle it into relationships in a positive way, to prevent people from taking advantage of you. And also, if you're a teacher, learning how to reward your students. If you're a child, if you're a mother or father, learning how to reward your kids. If you're a partner, learning how to reward your partners, knowing that you don't have to praise them all the time, knowing that you don't have to give them surprises all the time, knowing that you don't have to give splendid gifts all the time. You could just give a simple gift, and 1 in 4 gifts are really expensive. I don't fucking know, to be honest with you, but you could use this for the positive. It's not just for abuse, and that's how it is, man. This is very interesting. I found this very interesting. This guy, when I heard him say that, I was like, all right, that's interesting. I should make a video about that. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, subscribe. Coupon code to get discount for one-on-one coaching is on the description down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video, or I'm closing the channel.